super excited to have you guys all here today. As a part of this session, it's great to see sort of a wide array of people from across the globe that have come to join us, and folks from companies and enterprises of sort of all shapes and sizes. Our team's put a ton of effort into this Ask Me Anything session today, a lot of energy into the space as well. Really looking forward to the conversation today, to answer any questions, provide insight, and really just share the knowledge that we might have on the way voice or conversational design can positively impact customer service, especially in times of crisis, similar to what we're in today. So speaking of our team, happy to run through a quick set of introductions. My name is Alex Murray, Principal Voice Evangelist here at Versa, and have a great team with me as well. I have Tom Glover in the bottom there, at least on my screen, who's our strategy director here at Versa, specific to the voice and conversational design space. Tyler Hamilton, our lead conversational architect. Stephen Glover, our North American head of technology and conversational AI. And last but most certainly not least, Kath Blackham, our CEO here at Versa. As we kick things off, Kath, I'd love to sort of hand it over to you just to give a quick overview of who Versa is for any of those that may not know.
Yeah, thanks so much, Alex. Look, I'll keep this really brief because this is really about answering your questions today. Look, I started the agency 10 years ago, and 4 years ago, we started a dedicated voice and conversational design agency. So really, if I could summarize it really quickly, it would be to say that we're a digital agency building out enterprise level solutions using emerging tech like conversational design. We've been doing a lot of work in the chatbot space, both voice and text. And recently we've been doing a lot of work in this crisis management area. So we're really excited today to share with you what we've learned and how we can help in these crazy times.
Awesome. Thanks, Kath. So we have a great set of questions that folks were able to submit beforehand. So thank you very much if you had a chance to do so. Also, there's a Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. If you have any questions during the session, feel free to pop them in there. We'll try and get through as many as we can. That's what we're here for. So looking forward to it. Tom, I'd love to start with you. You know, there's plenty of sort of questions in this space, and we have a long list here. But one that really stood out right from the get-go was, in your opinion, how are chatbots sort of transforming the customer service space, and what does that mean to sort of customer service in general?
Yeah, cool. Yeah, definitely chatbots are playing a massive role in sort of that self-service automation space. They're definitely strategically placed right where customers need them to assist them on their journey. Think about all of the things that customers ever wanted to ask your business or organization or kind of wanted to put weight on your customer service team to respond to. Why can't your kind of bot or conversational experience respond to this? I think it's been said that something like 80% of customer service queries are for the same 20 or few questions. And so chatbots can facilitate answering a lot of these kind of non-complex or semi-complex questions to help alleviate high call and contact volumes on your customer service agents. Also think about this from your customer service perspective. How can we transform that team to give them the best tooling or background knowledge of your customers to ensure that they give much more of a personalized touch with it for the end user and kind of solving that query a lot quicker. With our conversational experiences, we can build in capabilities to give your customer service team detailed handovers. So where the conversation goes from the conversational AI through to the human element, to ensure that they're giving all that transfer of knowledge, as well as using AI tools within the customer service portal to give the right knowledge base sort of answers or the next best prompt, so to speak, for that customer query. And it definitely helps streamline managing multiple support queries at once. I mean, if you think about where you don't have a customer service portal, you're kind of managing a lot of your inquiries via email. Once you've got them all brought together within this one kind of customer support tool, you can manage multiple conversations seamlessly and kind of resolve those a lot quicker than you currently were before.
Great, thank you. So to piggyback on that, Tyler, I'd love to get your opinion on sort of, my experience, and I'm sure a lot of other experience in the past with chatbots is they're just not great, right? You can kind of handle like maybe one level of questions, and beyond that, they just sort of fall apart quickly. So what is it that can be done to sort of make them better? And how do you think about making them better and more conversational going forward?
So this is like a little bit opinion-y on this one, but the first bit is like absolute training. I think that you're going to have to be extremely lucky to be able to get a chatbot out in the market that's going to be able to answer every single request with 100% accuracy the first time that you put it out. If you're doing that, you're probably not releasing a chatbot that I guess has a full breadth of knowledge. It's probably not answering a lot of questions. It probably only has one or two very simple conversation flows. But if you're wanting a chatbot that I guess has a large breadth of knowledge, you're going to have to be constantly training it and just constantly looking through all of the requests that users are asking for. Definitely implementing some sort of a continuous improvement policy, just going through all of the training data, matching it to intents, creating new intents and creating new answers for people who are asking these questions that you don't have an answer for. And then also just looking through data that you've already got. So internal searches, we're finding that quite a lot of people are actually typing in full questions into existing internal search. So why not use some of that data to start influencing what intents you want to include in your bot?
That's great, thank you. So Steve, to piggyback on what Tyler mentioned there, when we think about sort of what is the set of data that a company might need, right? What are the resources? What does it entail? Tyler mentioned giving as much information as you have. From a business standpoint, a technical standpoint, what is the types of information or inputs that we need to create a solution that might help a company in a time like this?
Yeah, great question. Thanks. When we every time we start a project, we like to start kind of from a wide breadth of just generally understanding the requirements. A lot of times we'll do that in the form of a big requirements gathering workshop. And the things we're looking for there are to really understand both the use cases, like the business needs or the customer needs that the chatbot might be able to solve, but also understanding the other, like the audience and what kind of scenarios they're going to be thinking about talking to the chatbot. But from a more technical perspective, we're also going to be looking at needing to know just the current ecosystem or the current platforms that are in place with wherever that chatbot is going to be involved. So definitely the website itself, so where the chatbot might exist. If we're going to put it as a little live chat type service on the bottom right-hand corner, then we can know other things about the front end and the back end of that website that might help us deploy that. We'll also want to be able to improve and augment that chatbot as time goes on. And one of the things to be able to facilitate what Tyler just talked about from a standpoint of continuous improvement is ideally making it so that can be modified in as simple way as possible for the existing content editors of the website or the customer service folks that are already answering knowledge-based type questions or perhaps answering phones. So we really need to get into understanding what any existing systems that might be in place from a telephony standpoint or other APIs or databases that might be involved. And something that's important is, I've mentioned, I guess, chatbots a little bit like on your website, but it's not necessarily just on your website. It might be, again, on your customer support number, or people are actually dialing in, then they might be talking with a bot experience first and that can handle a large number of calls before it has to be handled over to a human. And this whole experience might run through a Facebook Messenger bot or WhatsApp, or there's a variety of other platforms. And so from a requirement standpoint, we have to understand both where those users are and then how we can kind of integrate those different solutions and ideally make it as painless as possible for the existing customer support teams or existing team members that might be managing or deploying that in the future.
Great. That makes a ton of sense. I think you hit on something really unique there, that a chatbot isn't necessarily just what we think of traditionally as a chatbot, right? It's something that lives on a website where you can type into it and get a return answer. It may live in a telephone system or a phone number that you call that allows you to get information more quickly than you have in the past. Kath, to wrap that up full circle, I'd love to get sort of your opinion on, when you're out and you're talking to customers and companies and enterprises, especially in the current moment that we're in. How do you see or sort of understand where customers can look for the return on their investment or the value that this is bringing them, especially in a time where customer service is of extremely high priority?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think I'm just going to touch on, so just to Steve Hansen's point, this isn't just about bots on a website. So I'm going to actually talk a little bit more specifically about the telephony opportunity, I think, that people don't know as much about. And the ROI that you can get on that we've seen with clients already, and the big one at the moment, given the current issue that a lot of brands have got with huge wait times, is that it actually decreases wait times. We can see the bot that sits at the front of the call center and kind of answers the most common queries take kind of 40 to 50% of the load off the call center. It also allows, depending on what you've got the bot there for, it also allows call center staff to actually spend more time cross-selling and upselling. So there's a lot of ROI there in terms of rather than them just answering the same question over and over again, what are my login details, etc. It allows them to actually have a deeper relationship with the customer when they do get to speak to a human and do that cross-sell and upsell. So that's also ROI. It really allows them, and this is very timely, it allows a business to manage their big spikes without having to have a large backup team. So what a lot of the clients that we're talking to at the moment are finding that, they've got their kind of day-to-day call center, but for crisis management or, it might be at the end of the financial year, for example, when they have a lot of calls coming through, they have to kind of manage that somehow. So they have to have this kind of backup team, and the bot really helps with that. And then finally, apart from the fact that it streamlines really the call center and the whole customer service experience, in my opinion, it also reduces mistakes. So we have a lot of pharmaceutical clients, for example, that would prefer to use a bot. Something that is a little bit of a misunderstanding with bots is that they do have a certain amount of machine learning in them, but they only say what you tell them. So they're not going to go off script at all. And so that allows you to have a lot of peace of mind in terms of what is being said about your product to the customer. So those are the kind of main things that I would say that you can get back from implementing chatbots, both on your website, but also through your call center.
That's great insight. Thank you, Kath. There's some really good questions that have come through just in the chat in the time we've been talking so far. Tyler, I'd love to kick it back over to you. One of the questions is around, Steve touched a little bit on the process, but what can a customer expect from the time that it takes to build a chatbot that might be implemented for them?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think with this one, it can completely depend on what the use case is. So I'll use like a good coronavirus bot, for example. Obviously, that's something that's got to go out quite quickly right now. And there are tools and frameworks and sort of design processes that we use to get bots out extremely quick. And it also depends on sort of how much machine learning you want to put in the back end. So you can go down a little bit more sort of conversational flow bots that also use UI elements such as suggestion chips at the bottom. So you're not opening up text completely to the user. So that does remove one large major component of the bot building process. So if we wanted to do a bot like that, we can get those out fairly quickly. I'm a little bit hesitant to put a timeline in. I can see Cap going like that, but I think generally speaking, if we want to be quite quick, we can get a fairly basic bot out in 3 weeks with some breadth of machine learning in the back end. But sort of like what I was saying before, the continuous improvement, I think, is the most important thing. So I wouldn't be looking at the time that it takes to release the initial bot. That can really depend on what your requirements are, how necessary is it that it goes out in say, the first week. But just mainly look at how long you actually want the bot live for, and just make sure that you keep training and training and training. Because you can release that basic bot right at the start. But the most important thing is it's smarter every day.
Great, that's a good point. It's, you know, the continued learning, continuous improvement is really key to success as we go longer term. But that first iteration can happen fairly quickly depending on your context. Tom, I'd love to piggyback on that a little bit and get a bit of your perspective on some of the key considerations when someone's implementing a chatbot for their business. What are the things that you think most about it, and the areas that we want to make sure that our customers cover as they think about the space?
Yeah, definitely. And I think the one big question we always ask ourselves and the client, particularly looking at use cases, is this better by conversation? We definitely don't want to just try and make experiences that are forcing conversation to solve a use case. We want to look at maybe how conversation might solve the problem a bit differently. Then kind of going into what sort of Tyler mentioned as well around the audience, you know, and Steve kind of mentioned this as well, like thinking about, you know, is your audience the type of audience that would interact with your business digitally over a chatbot? Would we be better to assist them with a conversational experience in the IVR space? So kind of thinking about the older demographic who might want to dial in, or even thinking about the smart speaker world. You know, is it better to kind of create an engaging experience over the smart speaker sort of thing? Definitely, we kind of take a pilot program approach. So kind of what Tyler mentioned there around getting what you've done out in the market, getting it tested by real users before you go out, before kind of a big bang approach. So that way you can kind of implement that training a lot quicker and actually understand what your customers are asking for. Because I do think that it will surprise you there. Definitely listening to your customer support team. I think that they kind of come to the front line of your sort of conversational experience. Ask them where customers are seeing the pain points. Be the guiding light that kind of helps them to do their job. And then kind of finally look at what backend services we might be able to leverage to help kind of start some of that self-service automation. And then always, bot training is always key. We find that that's a never-ending sort of task, and we like to always take our clients on a journey to retrain their bots and kind of expand on that and expand on new intents.
Alex,
Great.
can I just
Great.
add something there? Is that all right?
Please.
Yeah,
Yep.
no, just because we've been doing a lot of work in the government space just in the last couple of weeks, and it is, and Tyler's obviously looking at me like I don't know what I'm supposed to say here in terms of timeline, so I'm just going to put it out there. It is incredible what you can do even within a week if you really need to. So what I would say about bots, I didn't appreciate probably coming up to I guess this period in time because we've always had a lot more time and we've been able to, you know, take our time to think things through and to do the strategy up front, etc. But actually when our backs have been to the wall, which is what's happened over the last couple of weeks, we've been able to get almost a fully formed bot out within a week. So, and in fact, you know, it was 4 days, but you would allow another few days to kind of tidy things up. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there because I think there is a lot of misconception about how complicated these things are. And as someone that isn't like completely technical as such and came from a marketing background, I really had no idea how long it would take, and I've been pleasantly surprised.
Awesome. That's a great point, Kath. Thank you. Steve, I want to put a bow maybe back on something that Tom and Tyler mentioned that I'd love your insight on in terms of, you know, that we've talked a lot about like gathering that data or continuing to learn and that continuous improvement process from the information that is fed to us through these conversations that folks are having across platforms, right? Whether it be a smart speaker, phone call, a chat bot, whatever the case may be, where you're interacting through a conversation. I'd love to understand a bit more from the technical side. How do we actually, what does that actually mean, right? How does the conversation learn and get smarter? And what does that look like from a technical standpoint?
Yeah, sure. Thanks. Yeah, from if you think about it from a data perspective, whether it's a call center and getting the transcripts of those phone calls or the transcripts of a chatbot user, after a period of time, you end up with a lot of data around how people are interacting with the chatbot. And we collect it in two different ways. One is a transcript itself, and depending on the use case, that may or may not persist that transcript for privacy reasons. But and even if we don't persist or save that transcript, we will always record the intent of what the user was asking for and the intent of what we responded back to the user. And we record those either in a kind of more traditional analytic platforms like Google Analytics, or perhaps in more conversational platforms or analytic systems. Also, we like to store them when possible, like in more like a data lake type scenario. And what we can do with that is we can start to understand kind of those common flows that users go through when they first say hello to the bot to their final destination of where they got to at the end, and the steps in between. And we can actually help improve our bot by learning from those flows that occur. And if users are perhaps expressing frustration along that path, or maybe they're getting their answer after 20 turns instead of just 1 or 2 turns, or different scenarios, we can learn from that in a couple of different ways. The first one is just what Tyler often does when we're looking at a project, is he'll go back and look at the transcripts and actually analyze them himself manually and kind of look through and see what are people doing and what can we do to improve that. But then when we start to get a larger number of data, we can actually start building some AI or machine learning into the conversational paths themselves. And so if a user goes through, we can start feeding a machine learning database with all of the conversations that have happened, all the intents, both incoming and outgoing intents, and then start to be a little bit predictive. If a user has passed through these first 5 intents, they said these things, and based on past behavior, the AI could actually predict that probably the thing they're going to end up on, whether that's 10 or 20 turns down that conversation, is actually going to be related to some other topic or something. And we can be a little more predictive and perhaps ask the user, do you actually mean this? Or maybe they didn't know the words to say. Maybe it's an uncommon thing to actually know the business terminology, and there's a more vague way that users end up expressing it. And we can start to kind of learn from that in the past and use that technology, both that machine learning, both from a back-end perspective and improving it, but then also, obviously, as we always use the machine learning on the actual understanding of the chatbot to begin with. But the data that is critical to that continuous improvement he's talking about, and actually making a bot become more useful over time. And it really, what our aim in is doing and kind of this improvement is we want to help that bot be the best bot that it can be, while leaving the humans to be even better humans in their interactions. We really don't want the humans in our call centers and our customer service centers having to do behaviors that are bot-like. If we can have the bot do those in a friendly way that doesn't kind of hinder that experience for the user. And that's really what we're trying to enable by making our experiences smarter all the time.
That's great, Steve. That leads really well into another question that we had here, which is a great question. And Tom, I'd love to get your perspective on this. The question effectively is around real-time customer support, right? Whether someone is shopping for something online or they're maybe online doing something else. What are the ways that voice and conversation specifically, or understanding of conversation, are supporting the folks who are in that customer service role, right? What are some of the ways that we're understanding the conversation that's happening, and how we're assisting that customer service agent to better assist that end user than they were prior?
Yeah, I mean, if we think about the current situation or the current climate that we're in at the moment, specifically, I consider this one as to e-commerce or retail. Customers can no longer go out and shop the way that they used to traditionally do within a store. So what we can do with conversational experiences, bring that kind of retail assistant through to e-commerce experience and kind of take users on a journey, kind of helping them with selection of products in real time and kind of giving serve up results based on what they're after. If you think about, you know, common ones like someone going in to buy a pair of running shoes, we can kind of create conversational experiences in real time around, you know, what are you trying to do? What kind of distance are you running for? What kind of brands do you like? And kind of refine that customer's product search. I think what's really powerful as well as you think about that type of bot sort of experience that can even be brought over into another channel like WhatsApp or Facebook Messenger. So you can actually use that bot experience to kind of draw users into your website as well. And then I can kind of see on that question there as well around sort of getting over that technical jargon kind of component as well. We definitely use bots as well to help users understand content better or kind of discover content better. You might be already having that on your website or kind of somewhere else on one of your channels, but just being able to ask what a technical jargon term might be if you're looking at the legal service, well, our bot might be able to respond to that. When the user's on your website, they might be reading some content that, you know, they're just like, I've got no idea what any of this means. You know, these are words that I have to get out my dictionary. Rather than getting out the dictionary, they can literally just type to the bot, hey, what does XYZ mean? And the bot can kind of give them a response in real time, be able to kind of assist them along their journey. The other part there is that kind of human handover aspect as well. So kind of if you've got a specialist on the other side of your customer support kind of network, they can kind of respond, giving that subject matter expert information right where the customer needs it.
Alex, can I just add to that?
Perfect. I was going to leave with you for the last slide, so
cool.
please.
I just was going to say that it might be good for us just to post. There is a really good video that's available. It's just reasonably well hidden on the Genesis site, which is a telephony partner that we work with, where they have actually shown, at least from a phone system, IVR, and IVR, for those that don't know, is press 1 for this, press 2 for this, press 3 for that, just leveling the playing field there. So replacing that IVR experience with a conversational design experience, which is like chalk and cheese, to be honest. And that's the bit that we do. But there is a really good example of how to use, they've used the Google CCAI product, which I think is a really incredibly powerful product. And I, you know, again, I can see that this question is talking about legal services. It's absolutely perfect for something like that, where I'm sure from a legal, if it's a large law firm, there would be lots and lots of common questions. But again, you have to be really careful about what you say, because obviously from giving legal advice, etc. So this is where you can take people down a sales path, but then hand them over to a human right at the end, and it shows how that actually works and augments that human. So it will show the human that it's handed over exactly what transcript has been said, but also based on a knowledge center that the client has built up, will also then augment that human by giving them advice on what else they could say. So it's incredibly powerful and really exciting for all industries, but certainly the legal industry. So, sorry, did you have a question for me, or was
that that's perfect? That covered off on exactly where I was headed.
Okay,
we're actually right at time. It's 3:31, so just a minute over. Wanted to sort of quickly again thank everyone for being a part of this. As we leave this, we'll certainly share details, contact info for all the folks here, as well as some sort of follow-ups or links to some of the things we mentioned today. By all means, please reach out to this group if we can help you in any way. I'm more than happy to have a conversation, no pun intended, with any of the folks here that are thinking about this or looking at the space and how we may be able to help or guide you in whatever direction that might be for you. So again, thanks so much for joining. We certainly appreciate it. Have a great Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on wherever you are. And we'll certainly talk again soon.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.